noise coming on. There we go.
What's that?
Hello, everybody. I'd like to open the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. It's now 7 p.m. Could we begin with the pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any public comments? Seeing none? Correspondence?
None.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that before we do approval of minutes, we move the second item under new business, which is consideration of using ARPA funds in the amount of $225,000 towards the replacement of the tennis courts behind Bethel High School, up above the approval of minutes. So second. Any discussion or problems? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that carries unanimously.
You don't want to stay with us?
The last 2 meetings, it was a joy to stay for the entire time.
Yeah.
This one time I thought maybe I'll leave early, get out of your guys' hair.
Speaking of joy, the illustrious Board of Finance Chair has walked in. Hello, sir. Okay, so I'll make the motion, then we'll discuss. I move that we use ARPA funds in the amount of $225,000 towards the replacement of the tennis courts behind Bethel High School. For a second.
Second.
Okay. For discussion, Rachel, you want to kind of, you have anything you'd like to add? I mean,
I guess
we
my
talked
only,
about this for a while.
yeah, I guess my only question is obviously that's the rest we're obviously going to the Board of
Board of
Finance.
Finance.
To see if we get the
Maybe.
capital now return. You haven't seen me in a few months.
You haven't asked for anything in a few months either.
And I guess my only question is if it is approved and we can move forward, obviously now we're kind of getting time constraint wise for this to be a fall project.
Yes.
I don't know what needs to happen in order for us to possibly bypass the big project. Can we do that? There's a point where
Well, we only, you've looked at a couple different companies, right?
three
You have,
companies and two were much more expensive than the lowest quote.
Which is $478?
478,941.
okay,
The second quote was in the sixes and the other quote was like 8, but they wouldn't even consider the asphalt reclaiming. They would only do post concrete. And those are 3 Connecticut companies that
okay. The 478.
have just done south side of the quotes.
Now, I thought we were at 450. No?
No, it was 478,941. 20 and 22 cents was the quote that they gave me.
So 478.91. So I think the question is too then, because we had talked about splitting it, ARPA and CNR, but we're gonna be a little low in ARPA at this point. Yeah, can we just do the rest of CNR? Do you think if we recommend it tonight? Yeah, so let's consider some numbers. So we're probably gonna then do. So.
If I think that's one, is that with the fencing?
That is nuts to bolts for a company doing it.
Yeah.
How many courts are you doing total?
There's 6 courts and 3 of those courts would be double line for pickleball on top of 3 staying just tennis.
Now, when they play like a tournament, are they only allowed to have courts that are lined for tennis? Or
No,
they're-
so that was actually a question I had, I asked the AD to ask the CIAC to make sure that having those courts lined for pickleball will not affect championship games or anything like that. I mean, do people love it? No, but it's not against the rules to have, so.
Yeah.
I did have them check that.
What was the number again? I'm sorry. Dan.
The total number is 478.91.
No. How many tennis courts?
6.
There's 6
Six.
there now. And
6 full tennis courts and then 12.
No,
No.
so 6 tennis courts,
Okay.
3 that would be straight tennis,
Okay.
and then 3, well, because you can play pickleball pretty much on 2 courts on
Right,
one
on each side,
court.
right.
Yeah.
So
So
6,
so 6 tennis courts, 3
Three.
full-time tennis courts, and then 6 pickleball with the other 3.
Correct.
Okay.
And we're still looking at the possibility now paving down where, or next to Rockwell or Johnson rather,
Another location.
paving there and then letting them just put up their own nets. So they give that's what kind of what Newtown did. And maybe long-term we'll find a better solution, but I think just paving
that's
it.
what Newtown did up in
Yeah.
Fairfield Hills. Like they just paved a little bit nicer, one of their parking lot areas, and the people just come and put down, paint lines like we would do for a parking lot. And people bring their own nets and just play. So, and we can actually fit 6 courts, pickleball courts on that piece of property.
Well, if we end up going that route before you finish your tennis courts, would it make sense not to line?
Actually, I don't think it hurts because I think like the high school could then utilize it as
Pickleball.
PE
Okay,
classes.
yeah, you know better than me. I
Yeah.
just, I don't want to create
It's
an
kind of
issue
like
with
the,
that,
it's
with
kind of
the
like the
tennis
middle
players.
school put 6 pickleball courts inside. I
Okay.
think it'd be a nice option for the schools to have too, because they traditionally have been playing pickleball a lot longer than it's been popular, so.
Well, if you're good with it, I'm good with it. That's fine.
So, I think moving forward, and Melanie, correct me on this, so I think now what we should do is we should do the first motion, which is on the floor, and then we should look at doing a bid waiver, just to make sure we're accepting the bid properly, and then we'll do a recommendation for CNR to the Board of Finance.
Are we allowed to do a bid waiver without it being on the agenda?
We can always just turn around and add to the agenda as a separate item, but since we're under one discussion, do we have to add it as an agenda item? You think? Okay, so why don't okay, so let's do this then. Let's table the current motion. Right, table the current, to be taken up in a moment or two.
Good.
And I make a motion that we add a bid waiver for the high school tennis courts.
Second.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. We want that. So all in favor of the bid waiver? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So Mary, you were, actually, I apologize. We added it to the agenda.
That was just.
And we just added it to the agenda.
Yes.
So Mary, if you would add that, I guess that would come right under this one, right before the approval minutes.
So right after you finish.
Yeah, right after this
After
one,
we approve it.
because we'll go do the other one here. So,
Okay.
so we have it on the agenda now.
Mhm.
I move that we accept, or we waive the bid and accept the current bid that we have.
Should we approve the ARPA first?
I think we should probably do the bid waiver first. Would make sense, because then we're,
Reasons for.
Yeah. Sure, we should. So I know that there's been a number of companies interested in, or I should say, we tried to contact. Some of them never ever got back to us. And I know the 3 that have gotten back to us, as she mentioned, 2 of them are significantly expensive. And we have one that has a history of doing tennis courts and doing other things. This particular field is kind of hard to find people. So I think with that, we have a good bid, and
And we have a time constraint to
There's
get
time
this done
constraint.
by.
Yeah.
If we
that's
want to
in
do
the
it in
fall.
the fall, there is a time constraint.
and we do need to get it done in the fall, because we know that they're gonna have a very difficult time next year trying to play.
Because typically it takes 60 days to do it because it has to cure and all that kind of stuff. So if
Good call.
we didn't do it in the fall, we'd have to shut them down this spring.
Good call. Oh, okay, so with that, I will try your minds. All in favor of waiving the bid?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Did you get a
Motion
second,
carries.
Dan?
Yes.
Yes.
Then I second it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll bring back the motion, request to use ARPA funds. I move to use ARPA funds in the amount of $225,000 towards the replacement of the tennis courts behind the Bethel High School.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay.
I think that's a good use of the money.
Thank you. I believe so too. And with that, I'll try your minds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I would like to add another vote.
Did you want to authorize the ability to enter into a contract with the vendor at this time?
We can do that. We'll do the last one. How's that? Good call.
Good.
Yeah.
We need Board of
But don't have to
Finance.
have the Board of
I'm getting
before
ready
we
to-
do that.
Well,
It's just you're acting
Yeah.
on, if you approve, if subject to Board of Finance.
Subject to Board of
Yeah.
Finance.
Right.
We're approving.
so what we'll do now is, I make a motion that on the agenda after the after the ARPA consideration for the tennis court, that we add recommendation to the Board of Finance to use $253,091 towards the tennis courts. That's my motion to enter the agenda.
Second.
Got a second from Rich? All in favor adding to the agenda?
Yes,
Aye.
yeah, just check that
Yeah,
dollar
check the amount.
253.91?
No.
253.
253,941 and 22 cents.
253,
941.
941, mean 94 cents?
No, 941 and
$941.
22 cents.
Okay,
254,000.
sorry.
So tell them the whole amount, because he wrote
The
down.
whole amount is 478,
Got it.
941.
Yeah. That's my bad.
Yeah, you
okay.
missed a number.
478, 910? 9 what? Give me the number again.
478, 941 and 22 cents.
941. Okay, that's what I screwed up there. I apologize. So let's get this right. Thank you. 478, 941. So 953, 941. Got it.
Yeah, that's right.
$253,941
That's right.
20%.
and 22 cents. 22 cents.
Oh, yeah, that's the deal.
Starts sounding like Brad.
I can find 22 cents.
Okay, I'll amend my motion. I move that we recommend to the Board of Finance to take $253,941.22 from CNR for the tennis courts.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Finally, Harry, we're going to do a motion here. I move that we add after this last motion, right, before the approval minutes, to move, to consider allowing First Selectman Dan Carter to enter into a contract for the tennis courts and take any other necessary action to, what's the words, Melanie?
To
To facilitate the
purposes.
purposes.
Okay, before you do that one, Dan?
Yeah.
The previous motion was to add that to the agenda. So do you want to vote on it?
Oh, we didn't vote, we didn't even do that one yet. Which actually is fine. We can, yeah, we'll vote on first.
Okay.
Oh, boy. All right. I didn't realize we were adding that to the agenda. I wish I had this right in the first place. Okay, I move that, we recommend to the Board of Finance to take $253,941.22 from CNR, right? For the purchase of the tennis courts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. We had added it to the agenda the first time,
Oh,
even though I stated the motion. Okay, so now we're adding to the agenda to allow First Selectman Dan Carter to enter into a contract and do any other necessary things to facilitate for the purposes of the tennis courts.
You want to do financial approval?
Yeah, pending.
Yeah, pending Board of Finance.
Pending Board of Finance approval.
Second.
Okay, we got a second. We're adding to the agenda. All in favor of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, with that, I move the same. I move that we allow the First Selectman Dan Carter to enter into a contract and do anything else necessary for the purpose of the tennis courts with Board of Finance approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I believe that takes care of the tennis courts.
See you on June 11th.
yeah. Are you okay timeline? Does that screw it up? I mean, do we need to have a special or are you? Okay?
No, I kind of contacted to kind of figure it out. I think like letting them know in July is kind of the end all be all. So I'll kind of give them a heads up that
Will
by
they
June
take
11th, I will have an idea.
will they
and-
take a word from you saying, hey, get it
Yes, I
scheduled?
think they will, yes.
Thanks, Rachel.
Hi, gentlemen and ladies.
Thank you.
Enjoy your-
All right.
All right, I move that we approve the Board of Selectmen regular meeting minutes for May 7th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll try your minds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And aye. Motion is approved unanimously. Okay, I won't take a ton of time. I'm going to throw out something a little controversial we talked about. I've met with two companies recently. After being with the chief at the Chiefs convention, You know, one of the things we talk a lot about is speeding in town, especially on the smaller routes in the town. If you think about it, Payne Road, Nashville Road, Reservoir, even Old Hollyville to some degree, there are main thoroughfares of traffic in the town, yet they're never built for that. We are getting some help from the state and a couple of grants where they're going to come out and work on like redoing some of the curves with the, you know, the bright shiny reflectors and stuff. But as you may know, last year there was a bill put forth and passed that would allow municipalities to do speed cameras. Kind of want to just see what you guys think, if we would ever want to consider recommending that to the traffic authority and the police commission, because right now it's an issue on those roads. I also say they allow, this year they passed a bill which will allow sound cameras. So on those areas like where we get issues with some of those areas with the high traffic, and those are something too we can move around and we can put them in a couple of different places. There are a lot of rules in place. We have to do an ordinance. We have to pass it to the voter. So what's your thoughts? I hear you shaking your head. You're like, hell no.
I'm not in favor. I think part of,
Yeah.
you know, law enforcement is using good discretion, and, you know, I think this takes complete discretion away, and, you know, sometimes there's a valid reason.
Yeah.
For why someone was doing what they were doing, and I don't.
So it is worth mentioning, I guess I should talk a little bit about the process. What would happen is if we would be able to choose our zone, and we're able to set the speed that we wanted to go off, like 10 miles over, first off. It gets adjudicated by one of our own police officers, and there's an appeal process. So if somebody does come up with a good reason, we certainly can, you know, not do the ticket. It's all done locally. But yeah, I'm just throwing it out there because the other part is, if we ever looked at this for Greenwood, we're getting ready to spend millions of dollars on Greenwood Avenue to create all these traffic calming, you know, bump outs and all this sort of stuff. For $100,000, we could stop speeding with Greenwood with doing the whole camera thing, and eventually we break even on it. So it's something to consider down the line. But if you guys are no appetite for it, then
Is there a recommendation from the police commission?
no. This kind of came with the chief and I when we were looking at this stuff. We've investigated it. I would pass all the information to the police, but I would do it as a recommendation from us. They can still do what they want. It's all on them. They're the police commission. They have complete traffic control authority. But at the end of the day, like I said, we're getting ready to spend a lot of money. And we have people still speeding. We've had accidents. We've had one death downtown. Like these are something that's very real. And we're going to spend millions of dollars when we can do a couple speed cameras, even on Greenwood. So just want to let you know I'm looking at. There's no decision we made, but I did attend, you know, 2 meetings on the subject to learn about it. So,
Yes, but when you start there,
Yeah.
where does it stop? Next, we'll do red light cameras, then we'll do these cameras, and before you know it,
yeah,
we're in like a complete police state. And look, I'm a former police officer,
Sure.
right? And, you know,
What do they do with the
my,
data?
my
No one's ever
feelings,
answered that question.
my feelings are that, you
Yeah.
know, if we have a problem, set up speed enforcement ourselves and tackle it that way. I really don't like computers enforcing laws. It's a very human interaction, and I think it's important. And sometimes, to be honest with you, you know, police officer just speaking to someone, telling them what's going on, sometimes corrects the behavior without the ticket.
Okay.
And, you know, I do think we have a very professional police department, and they're very well equipped to handle anything like this. So
Okay.
I'm just, again,
yeah.
it's no disrespect. I would
No, it's
never, I would never stomach it.
So next up here, we've been looking a lot at the animal shelter, of course. We're getting the bottom line is we failed our inspection again on the animal shelter, not a surprise. I mean, the whole thing's a tear down at this point from what the state says. The real question is whether we're going to try to put it on the original foundation, or maybe we're going to go over and take that little pump house out of the way and put it a long way, which will look a hell of a lot more. Right now, we're kind of getting quotes just to see what our options are. I know that public utilities went out and got a quote for capping that well. There used to be a well in there. I don't think it's gonna be a lot to take it down. Doesn't look like there's anything in it to remediate the little pump house thing. We're talking about our animal shelter right across the street.
Is
Yeah.
Is there a possibility though of like teaming up with Dawes where they reserve some kennels for us and the dog, rather
Yeah.
than building a new building, whether we can team
We
up,
can try again.
we can.
Yeah. The problem was when they did it last time, they looked at Danbury, they looked at Dawes. And Dawes didn't want anything of it at the point because we're
Okay.
very different
Yep.
situation. Like they're taking people in, they're taking dogs in that are really meant up for adoption.
Right.
Versus the short-term piece, which is why Danbury was a problem. They didn't want us, give us access all hours of the night back and forth. So we did try to do that. I will say we're going to try to look at Reading more closely because there used to be an option to work with Reading, a lease of some kind. So we do work with Reading. They use our pound. So I think it's something that we have to.
Maybe they'll.
Yeah, so I think that's something down the line we'll look at. Like, once we kind of have an idea what we're looking at. We'll also, so Emma Zahansky, who's our communications person, now we're getting her more over to working with grants. So remember, we took 20,000 from ARPA. So what's going to happen is, as part of this, because we're a good grant for this, she's working with Kristen Hadjis from West Hall and some other folks to kind of get up on grant writing. We already sent her to a class. And she also has that $20,000 to help hire outside help. So we're going to try to get a grant for this. I mean, if there's any way to do it, we're supposed to have it remediated by December. I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll certainly, if we're doing our best,
Yeah.
make the state will have to understand.
Indicate you.
Yeah. So that's the animal shelter. I had a coffee with the seniors this week. Went really, really well. I gave my quick intro and I said, okay, how about questions? And all the hands went up and there's a huge group. So a lot of the issues that are most important to them right now, obviously tax relief for seniors is they're asking for help there. They understand how difficult it is. I did explain to them that it's very hard sometimes because we have a lot of seniors that have means, like a lot of money, but maybe their income is very little because of what they're taking. We have to figure out a way to do that down the line for tax relief. Development is still a big issue. Traffic, development, roads, especially near the senior developments. So I'll talk to Highway about that, but there's one woman who has trouble with the wheelchairs. I guess the gaps between the sidewalk ramp and the street, things like that. So there's definitely some senior issues. But all in all, they feel pretty good about town and what's going on. That there's just worried about senior tax relief and the development's the big pieces. Yeah, I went to Westcog this week, but I'm not going to go into detail. We can talk about that another time. So that's my report. So next up is public site and building.
Good evening, everyone. I believe Mary sent around, or actually, I included all of you in the email that I sent with the reports. And so I'm just going to go through. I just kind of put some bullets on a few others. A few of them I have little updates. So with the Johnson and Rockwell School renovations, the OSCGR has finally started their audit. We had to wait for them to finish the audit in order to get our final reimbursement. They always hold back the percentage, 10%, 11%, something like that, before they finish the audit, once they finish the audit. So they're in the process of doing the audit. That's all I know. My understanding from Dr. Carver is that they go through a whole process of looking at all the paperwork that they already have. And then I guess they say, good, give you some paperwork, give you your check. It would be great to get that done because it is something that's still out there on a bond that's we're paying interest on. So that's in process. And the budget hasn't changed much at all. Rockwell continues to be over, while Johnson continues to be significantly under. We still have about 700,000 left in the total overall budget. And so do we keep going, or do you have any questions on? We'll do questions for each individual piece. Or
I have no questions on that. They're here till Thursday. Brad?
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
So the auditors finished their in-person today.
Oh,
He told me there's still a couple things we owe them, but he said pretty much the next process is we wait 2 weeks to 3 months until they circle back to finish their report. So this isn't going to be done anytime soon, but at least they've started it. And when we did the audit of the high school project, it was the same thing. It's a big rush to get them stuff. They look at it for a couple days and then they don't look at it for weeks or months later. So that's where we're at.
Okay, so do they tell Dr. Carver what they need as far as what they think is missing or whatever, or as they tell you?
They tell me and Dr. Carver, depending on what it is.
Okay,
The other thing, it's a town project, so we have all the paperwork, but as Office of School Construction will only deal with the superintendent, so it's a goofy thing that they have. But he was up in our office for the last 2 days because we have all the paperwork.
right, we brought you, we gave you some initially, and we brought another 4 or 5 boxes that were left at the old police station. Brought those up, I don't know, 6 months ago, and put them in that back closet.
Yep, we have that.
Yeah, because all that stuff is kept electronically too, but they want to see the papers, I guess.
So what we sent electronically throughout the process, the audit team does not have access to.
Oh,
So
they look at.
even though we thought this is great, we're sending everything throughout the process. It'll make the audit a lot easier. They do not have access because it's a different department. So Dr. Carver asked that question. She's like, well, you should have access to all that. They said no.
Yeah,
So
that's crazy. Okay. That's good to know.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you. So, the, high school HVAC updates or upgrades. So the Board of Ed was notified by email and then finally given a letter saying that we did get the grant. And I don't know if it's something that you then have to accept. I don't know what the process is because I didn't read over all the grant paperwork. However, in waiting for the grant, they had said originally we'd know in March, we weren't hearing things. We decided to work on getting out an RFP for a contractor. And Jen in Board of Ed and Cole Ronan, they had done the original plans, worked on putting that RFP together and putting it out. So it went out beginning of May. And then there was a walkthrough, which 7 contractors showed up, which was a good indication, I think. I don't know if all 7 of them were general contractors or some brought subs. And then the bids are due Thursday, tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow.
Okay.
And we had figured if we hadn't gotten the grant yet, we would still, as the bids came in and they were asked to hold the bid price for 60, 90 days, something like that. So that way we would get an indication of were we way over, would we really need to look at the budget and change things around? So we were gonna put the bid out no matter what. And luckily we got the grant, so now we have to do whatever the next steps are in getting that's sticking with the approved amount at the referendum and sticking inside that grant amount. Once we get bids, we're gonna have to look at them, procurement committee will open them, and that we have to look at them and see, are we within that amount, or are we gonna have to make some changes?
Okay. You brought up the question. I think we're gonna have to go back and look when we did the referendum, if they gave the first selectman the time, the ability to make those decisions then.
Yeah.
Right, because then we wouldn't have to accept the grant because we would have already done that. Otherwise, we will have to accept the grant as a board of selectmen. I
Would
believe.
you still have to accept it?
I don't know. So I'll look into that at
Yeah.
our next meeting. We will accept the grant if need be. It's in 2 weeks. It's fine.
I'm not honestly not sure.
Yeah.
I haven't been involved with too many grants been accepted.
Yeah. I just remember being
Well,
at a
next
meeting
week,
once when you accepted a grant.
Yeah.
Okay, and you brought up another good point. Now, I don't know if we ever officially assigned this to the Public Site and Building Committee yet too.
You
So,
did,
Yeah, I
Did
thought we did do that.
We did it for the other grant.
yeah, but not,
We did it for the HVAC, the small one. Did we do it for this?
no, well, we didn't do the small one, not the big, so there's phases, those phase 1's being
Right.
done, not by us. This is,
Harvard
I guess, phase 2. No, but we were assigned it a couple of, maybe a year or so ago before you.
Really?
I'll-
Because I was under the impression that Public Site and Building was never assigned the actual HVAC. Because remember, that schools had gone out on their own to do it already. Everything was done. Yeah, for the big project, right?
Just the 855 they did on their own.
Right, well, that one's,
That's not.
Yeah,
us.
but then they went out and got the engineer to do the second project.
They
Out of
used,
ESSER money.
they used the
And-
COVID money, their own COVID money for the drawing, so I don't think it was handed over.
I don't think it was either. That's what, so we'll
Just
check that out
the
too.
minutes.
Okay.
Just do it.
And the VRF one, or the, what they call the VRFs. That one they're working on. That was just, I know, 'cause
That's
we
a
did.
sign, yes, that's the only one, that's what I'm talking about with the grant, is that's what that's for.
This grant,
Yes.
it's not for that. This grant's for the big project, right?
It's for adding, air conditioning to a section of the center of the building. We're using
Right.
VR
Yeah.
boxes. It's
I
the
think-
4 million something.
Yeah, 4 million.
Right,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was-
yeah.
That was the bigger one.
The big project, not the one that you've been working on recently.
No, we haven't worked on any recently.
Well,
It was the small project, 299,000.
Yeah.
No,
That
that's
was,
not
they
us.
did not.
This is the one we
from that
went to
same-
the meeting. Remember, we went to the meeting.
oh, wow, then I'm,
Remember?
Yeah.
You and me.
I thought there was
attended the
another, yeah, I thought that was
No,
another section.
You and me attended a meeting.
Yeah.
About the,
Yeah, the
they
VRFs.
wanted to switch to chillers and we were like, we
Yeah.
just don't want
That
to
was
do
the
that.
$4.5 million project.
Yeah, oh, I understand.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Are we right thinking about this here, Brad?
Brad's like, what?
Because we,
So, yeah, I don't know. I was just checking the Board of Selectmen minutes around January when it was approved, the 23, to see if you were ever assigned, you ever signed it to Public Sign Building, the $4 million project. But the 855 that the Board of Selectmen gave them for HVAC improvements at the high school is an ARPA project that they oversee.
is that, and what was that project?
Not us.
So the 855 is like the AX1, I think.
Next one, right, which is what.
And that's the one that they're in process now of.
Not us?
Okay,
No.
so the VRF one was the large project.
Yes.
My-
Yes. And those bids are due, the date was revised, Nancy. The
Oh, okay.
bid opening is next Thursday, the 30th.
All right.
There
Yeah, I
you
was
go.
just taking off of what, Jen Bobo said our last 2 meetings ago.
So we'll have to, at the next meeting, we'll have to accept a bid and like accept a grant.
Well,
I
we
think
cannot-
we did assign it to them because they got involved with it.
Yeah, they
When
did.
they were talking about going
Yep.
from the chiller to the
Yeah.
they are,
fives or
which
whatever.
Yep.
Other
Jeff
way
Curtis
around.
still
Yeah.
insists that
They wanted to go
that's
to
the
the
better way to
chiller.
go.
Yeah, they wanted.
Chillers are less expensive. I mean, the VR boxes are less expensive.
Yeah.
They've been upgraded over
Right.
the years and they're lasting much longer than not as much maintenance. The down, I guess, I don't know if you call it a downside, but any who install it have to be certified and so.
So they're proprietary. So if you have a
Yes.
problem with it,
You have to go to them, but
you have to,
also,
or you have to
installation
change
is
the
the
whole
same.
unit out.
yeah, installation is the same. So if you choose this manufacturer, or only this person, or maybe a handful of people.
There's no doubt that chiller's a superior system. We just don't have the money to do chillers.
Yeah,
I
we
mean, no
have
one's,
space, but.
I'm just saying, no one's
Yeah.
gonna argue.
Well,
Yeah,
And it's not
you know,
worth it.
just-
It's not
yeah,
worth it
I mean,
because
we-
you just have money right now.
If you were building a new building.
You
Or
could-
doing
you
a
could-
major overhaul.
Yeah.
maybe, but-
When they were talking about adding the chillers, it was a significant amount. And literally you could go replace all those units, proprietary unit, plug and play. Every one of them for less than $1 million.
Right.
I mean, it was, I
Well,
forgot.
we'd
how
have
much
to
it was, a small amount.
re-engineer everything.
We wouldn't,
No, I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, for the
chiller.
chiller, yeah.
You'd have to
Yeah,
re-engineer
yes.
the whole project.
but I was saying,
Right.
even then, if we just go replace all the VRFs in 10, 15 years when they're supposedly not gonna be good, we still spend less money than a chiller system.
Yeah.
You know, so, okay.
Yeah.
So then, at
so
the
then-
next meeting, we'll look at that.
So if we're looking at opening bids next week, and then what's the step? What are the steps? You know, we look at them, obviously, we see if they're within budget. And usually then they're brought to the Public Site and Building Commission to deal with.
Mhm.
Yet usually that's done along with the owner's rep, so, or an owner's project manager. So are we working with Colliers to do this? They haven't, I don't know if anybody's contacted them to
So
find out.
I think they're working on trying to figure out that
Who's
part of
that,
it,
that part?
the school, because the school had set this up
Yes.
and we had Collier's, I think, at the beginning. I think they're trying to figure out, like, who do we have money with? Have you talked to them, Brad, since I spoke with them about who the ownership is gonna be?
I haven't, but I know we had that discussion. I think the biggest thing is they're waiting to see what these bids come in at.
Yeah.
To see what money is left to do anything. So I think after we had the bid opening on the 30th, we'll have a lot more information.
Okay. Okay. So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, and frankly, with that project, I think we're gonna have to talk, like, as a Board of Selectmen about keeping folks in the rails this time, that they don't turn around and just try to change the scope of the project.
Well, that can't happen because the
Yeah.
plans have already been accepted.
No, I'm with the fire department, with the police firing range, how,
Okay,
you know, everything changed, it went into contingency, which we're gonna talk about, but
yeah.
I just think looking at this, it's gonna be really, really important because it's such a big project that I know some folks don't like the way it was designed.
Mhm.
I just don't think there's a purview of once we move forward and they do this, these plans,
To
that
change it, you can't.
they change them like that. It's, so we gotta really think about, that's it.
Okay.
Next up.
So the municipal center renovations, obviously had gotten the lobby done outside the GP room. And so moving on to the locker rooms, Dan and Rachel and I met with Peter Eckert, who was the original architect, put together plans for us a number of years ago. And as Rachel had been thinking of kind of a different focus on how that's not just where the locker rooms are, but all the storage areas, how can we most efficiently use that? Storage keeps coming up. You know, you were talking about that too.
Yeah.
And so we met with Peter and came up with some ideas of, could we, and I guess we'd have to look at building codes too, could we possibly make the locker rooms smaller and make two small, couple of toilets, couple of sinks, couple of showers? And because they don't get used a lot as locker rooms now, even though they could be, there are not the kinds of programs happening in the gym where you need massive locker room kinds of things. So if we make them smaller and then we have room for other things, and the biggest thing that Rachel was saying that would work for not just park and rec, but looking at that whole space as it's not park and rec space, it's the town space.
Mhm.
What would work for the town? And one of the things that kept coming up is she called it a fitness room. So a room, maybe this size, maybe a little bit bigger, where you could have like a yoga class, or maybe you had some weights along the edge. You were doing some weightlifting kinds of the stuff people do now with those little weights. Some other equipment, but not massive, like, you know, a gym with, it's basically a fitness space. So we were looking at seeing if we could fit something like that in down there also. And now that theater has got to be a big thing, their stuff is taking over the building. They've got everything up on the stage. You can't use the stage for anything else. But there's a ton of kids coming in for theater, so it's the kind of thing they want to get going. So storage, but definitely doing something to upgrade the locker room areas to use, not just for a shelter, but if people needed to use it, hopefully a fitness space. And so we received a kind of an email proposal from Peter Eckert saying that he wanted, you know, could we just work off the existing contract, which was from 2015 and has names of people on it that don't work here anymore. And I said, no, we kind of can't do that. So I'm not quite sure how. I'll make some kind of suggestion to him. Because he was looking, $20,000 has been approved to start looking at that, using it from ARPA funds. It's still sitting there, not been used yet. And how do we get started on it? Come up with just some schematic ideas, because then we would have to look at getting other people involved, consultants for structural, MEP, and more from the architect, which will be a larger amount that we would have to come and ask for and hopefully get approved for.
Yeah.
So that's where we are with that.
And the goal, I mean, this used to be, you know, kind of an ARPA thing, but the goal was actually steep. If we can get a steep grant for it, this is the one we talked about. We know we'll have to put some money in the game. The good news is, I was told, and I don't know if it's this budget or next, but steep grants are going up. Instead of 500,000, they may be $1 million now.
Yeah.
So it means we probably, instead of $100,000, we put $200,000 into
Yeah.
something and get the whole thing done.
Well, and we put,
So,
so
if we
we
get
put in a steep grant last September. Janice had found
Yep.
out about one and dragged Rachel and I in one day, and we were both leaving to go on vacation or something. And she got her information together, I got mine together. We gave it to Janice. She sent it in, and we didn't get the grant. But what
Right.
we found out, this is good to know, all of the other towns that got grants had already approved some funds for the project.
Mhm.
And what we talked about was the way that, actually Colliers gave us a little bit of help. They took the original plans from Peter Eckert and kind of sectioned off just the locker rooms and made that phase one. So weren't even looking at the rest. So dollar wise, it looked reasonable to ask for that amount for just those locker rooms. But if we can get some plans done and then again, maybe put it in phases, go for a steep grant after having some funds approved. do that section, maybe go on then to do another section. Something along.
Maybe we
those
even
lines.
count the first one. Maybe we can count the lobby. I mean, it's all part of the same.
Yeah.
Because having those restrooms down the lobby.
Yeah.
Does lighten the load on what we need for a shelter. A little
That
bit.
plus it lightens the load of what you need code wise for mostly toilets.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what, at the time, what was being used as how many toilets you use, what was the formula? They're thinking
Yeah.
they're gonna be 500 people in the gym at a meeting and you need all these toilets. Well, we never do that anymore.
No.
It used to be where town meetings were and all. It's not really done that way so much anymore. I don't think we've had a town meeting, big special town meeting in this building for years. It's usually middle school or high school.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'll try to get some kind of an idea of what.
Yeah.
Because when we had proposals for, like with the firing ranges, we'll get into next. Jakunsky Humes, and wasn't the continuation of their previous contract. They gave us a proposal saying this much money to do this work, excluding these things, lots of exclusions, as Melanie pointed out. We have to pay attention to those more these days. And that was it. It was like a couple of pages with their amount. What Peter Eckert's looking for is a retainer plus an hourly rate. But we also have to keep track of how much we're spending and not to go above a certain amount until we get a bigger picture of how much we need to spend and then other funds approve.
Right.
So into the training range, Downs Construction has completed all of their work. And I have with me tonight, so I was back and forth with Kevin from Downs. They have given us the letter of substantial completion, which is signed. They had a couple of punch list things they finished up. It's signed by Downs, it's signed by Jakunsky Humes Architects, it's signed by STV. It needs your signature.
Right.
Now they need that in order to start scheduling inspections, which I didn't realize. So I'll either leave it with you or grab it later. I'll find it, and give it to you. And sign it. I'll get it back to them.
All those
So-
people have to sign off before the building can get inspected.
So it's an official, it's an AIA document. It's we've already done life safety inspection. I think Tom was over there to get that done. But to get the overall building inspection plus Laura, I think that's the, she's already, I got an email dealing with her for what she needs. But they said that in order to go to the building department to say they're done, they need the letter of substantial completion.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I've got it somewhere here, but I'll leave that with you. So, working on scheduling those, and then last week they got the makeup air unit up and running with all the different players that needed to be there to check it with controls, etc. And then Action Target needed to send their tech guy back to finish that. That happened today. They've been dismal in their communications, but they emailed Monday afternoon, I think, said our guy's coming. And the commissioning agent was scrambling to get somebody over there. And I asked, when are we doing training? Because they had said when they were doing, because somebody has to do training for the police department to show them all the bells and whistles, etc. And they said, oh, we're doing that this afternoon, meaning they're hopefully finished it already. So that was happening today. We, as the Public Site Building Commission and representatives of the town, are in a little difficult situation as STV has expended all their funds from their contract. And Evan has been giving me information that he had that I need. Officially, he can't be doing work anymore. However, I asked Brad today for a spreadsheet of what all the expenses have been so far, because the budget report that you have, I think, is wrong. I think the numbers aren't jiving correctly. So it's this one. And I asked Evan for an updated one. He gave me an updated one, and they still don't look right to me. And
We look at
so-
the STV list.
What's that?
Is it the STV one?
It's the STV one. Yeah, the other ones are the original, like,
Right.
projected budgets, as a comparison. But as I looked through the spreadsheet that Brad gave me today and how much we still owe, I think we have more in contingency. And I looked at, the last invoice we got from Action Target, invoice to pay, had listed 2 change orders on it. One that we approved back a while ago, $4,500 to have the makeup air unit function, in all modes, heating, cooling, and as air exchange when they're using the range. And then they put a $4,900 change order in there saying they had to move equipment twice or something like that. We never approved that. And if they're gonna try to get us to pay them for it, we didn't approve that change order.
Was this Downs or was this?
No, this is Action
Action
Target. So and then there's, Dan knows this, it's kind of a difficult situation in that Action Target is working on its own, not under Downs as a subcontractor. So it's put us in a difficult situation a number of times when they show up to work or they show up with equipment and there's no place to put it because they didn't tell us ahead of time. It's not an active work site at times. So it's been difficult getting communication from them. And I think they did show up several times to try to deliver stuff. And there was no place to put it. They had to take it back, etc. So I'm checking further into that.
So according to STV, you have $182 out of the
And
budget.
50 cents. I think there's more than that. I mean, as the contingency got lower and lower, I kept thinking it just didn't seem like we had made that many changes. I mean, some of the change orders that were done in the very beginning were part of the budget, but Downs wanted to get started on the work and gave us a GMP without two or three different contractors in place because they never received bids. So they put their GMP together knowing that they were going to have to spend an extra something. It was part of it, kept its place in the budget, and we had to do change orders for those things. Electric, they were having a hard time getting electricians to do the work. For some of them, it wasn't large enough, and for the smaller contractors, it was too big. So again, I'm working on that, and like I said, Brad was helpful in sending that spreadsheet. And Brad, if you can, if you're still there, verify, because on the spreadsheet, there's the 1.4 million that was approved at referendum. But before that, we had approved an amount for STV to get started getting everything done. Initially trying to get a big waiver, but then we had to put out an RFP, et cetera. And that was, so he's got listed $49,447 coming from capital non-recurring. And I emailed him about it saying, is this in addition to the 1.4 million? And I believe you said yes, or
I did. So
Okay.
the 1.4 million was approved by referendum.
yes.
The 49,447 was approved by the Board of Finance. So both of those dollar amounts have been approved.
Yes.
It's not, there was no caveat in the 1.4 to my knowledge that said less any money previously approved, because we would have just approved 1,350,000, whatever.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. So then we're doing
I'm
good.
sorry.
We're not going to spend it.
I'm sorry. The price of this job was 1.2. And then someone in the permanent building committee decided to change the drawings.
No.
And well, because I just want to know the history here.
Okay.
And then I was told, approve it for 1.4, but we're not going to go near that number.
Mhm.
So now I see we're almost $200 close to that number. And Brad, you're saying the Board of Finance voted to put another 50,000 in?
Prior to the.
Prior to.
Prior to.
Yeah. So Nick, January 11th, 2022, the Board of Finance approved project manager for training range, $49,447.
And then we had the town meeting for the 1.4?
Correct.
Okay.
It's just, to me, it's just a little frustrating because when it first came in, I remember the meeting quite clearly where it was going to be $999,999.
Yes.
And I said, no way. Was very objective to that. And then we came up with the number of 1.2. And I remember approve 1.4 and we're not going to get there. I mean,
So-
even if there's $4,000, even if there's $4,900, $5,000,
Right.
I mean, we're still would be at 1,395,000.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm just curious as to like,
So if you recall, in that meeting where it came in at 998, whichever it was, we had come to you, it was 2 years ago, March, I believe. And that came to you and Matt, wasn't Dan, asking for a bid waiver as Action Target had given us a number of 775, something like that. And we wanted to get a bid waiver so we could just get something signed from them to get them started on manufacturing the range equipment plus manufacturing the makeup air unit before the costs went up. Bid waiver was turned down. We had to put out an RFP, which Action Target did reply to. In that time frame, the cost of the makeup air unit went up. So
I don't have an issue with that. I was dead set against the 990 because I knew that was a fantasy and we were going to have to go to the voters anyway.
we needed a more specific budget, is what you were saying at that point, and I
Right.
agree.
And then I guess what I'm saying is after we got all the numbers together, we thought the project was going to come in at like 1.2, but let's give ourselves a contingency. My question is how did we get to 1.39, whatever,
Yeah, it's
950?
1.395 about.
Yeah, how did we get there? That's what I don't understand.
Right. So this is something that we had to ask for some help from Melanie from that there were some, and again, it's just still ambiguous, I would say. There were some items that were left unclear in the plans. So when Action Target did their plans for not just the range equipment, but for the makeup air unit, and that was done not by them, but by a HVAC type consultant. The plans that came from Action Target were then to be just an overall view. Those Action Target plans were to be combined with the Jakunsky-Humes plans for the rest of the infrastructure of what Action Target needed. And those would be what went out to bid, what Downs was going to use to go out to bid for all their subcontractors. And starting to look through the Action Target plans with STV, we started noticing that there were a bunch of indications, and some of you must know blueprints. It usually will call out either in the specs or in the blueprints or both who does what. And through most of it, it said contractor does this, contractor does that, contractor puts this up, contractor attaches this. And we asked which contractor, who's contractor, because if Downs is doing some work and Action Target is doing some work, who does what? So Action Target took the plans back. That set us back a month. It took them forever to get that done. And they then started putting in Action Target contractor, or I don't remember what word they used, something like general contractor. So they did that throughout the whole plans. We looked through it all. We were satisfied. We accepted the plans. And there were actually three larger issues that came up. The one more recently that we had to deal with, which is how we had asked Melanie to look at some of the contract language. There were conduits called from running from the makeup air unit and into the building, all around the building, different places. And it didn't say specifically who was to install the conduit. Action Target pulled wires. And Action Target showed up one day and said, put the conduit up. We got to get this done. So Downs got their electrical, knowing that it wasn't under their contract. It wasn't in the scope that they put out. Got the conduit all installed. Told the cost that it was going to cost. There was a lot of negotiating between Evan from STV and Action Target, Downs and their electrical contractor, who was really supposed to do this, who's going to cover the costs. Downs covered some of the costs. The electrician covered some, Downs from their contingency. And we approved a change order at our last meeting to cover the rest of it. It was $10,000. Things like that came out of the plans being some done by this, some done by that. If we had Action Target, hindsight, we had Action Target as a subcontractor of Downs, I think we would have caught a lot of that, all of it, and wouldn't have ended up with change orders that we asked for, like $4,500 is what we spent to upgrade the makeup area, not $200,000.
Nancy, who made the building 24/7 with the HVAC system? That's where the real change order came.
Actually,
So that was,
let me go. 'Cause it's from, and that's the question I was going to ask, because one of the problems was when they kind of changed the scope of what they were gonna do with the air handling unit and upgrading the whole thing.
Yes,
That's what kind of really blew out the contingency at the end of the day,
it was 4,500.
right? It was 45,
That's 4,500 is what we approved.
but didn't that change all the other things?
It changed.
Change the
some other
hanging,
things.
change the,
Not the hangers.
yeah,
That
change
was-
how they
that
put
was
it in the
not-
back.
Not the hangers, the back, you mean the trap for the bullets?
Yeah. Well, no, it was all in relation to the system was more robust and needed more work done to install it. That's why we understood.
Right, well, so
Yeah.
they had said something about, actually Target said something about the pad needing to be bigger, but the makeup area that sits on the pad, the original pad that we had poured.
Yeah.
Back in 2017.
Did they do metal on it or something to make it wider? 'Cause I remember they were gonna
To
do.
support the ductwork.
So they just
Yeah.
put two at
Okay.
either end to support the ductwork. That was 18, maybe 1900.
So maybe we do it this way, just to kind of keep it all good. When the final report is done, I'd like to task the Public Building and Site Committee to take a look at the numbers and find out what it cost us to upgrade from the plan into the larger air handling unit.
Just the air handling unit?
No, because that all costs other things that need to be done.
Yeah.
The whole cost of that, I mean, for us to have $182 left, I know that we've had some change orders, I know, but how did, to Brian's point, how did we get here?
Yeah.
And we've all been under the impression it's because they changed the scope of the air handling capacity in the building.
Right.
That's why we think that so we, instead of being 1.2, it's now 1.4. Right? It's $200,000 we're looking at, but we don't know where,
I don't think it was that much.
but I'm asking for that
Yes,
number. I'm just asking because,
But
and
we
I don't
do-
want to be, I don't want them to be defensive, but I think we need an accounting for where that extra money went
But we do have to
from
look
1.2 to
at
1.4.
leaving some of the stuff that was
Yeah.
happening in the building, like getting the sprinklers up and running. They weren't doing that when the air handler wasn't running because they didn't turn it on because it was too cold. A couple months ago, back in
Yeah.
January, February. The building's too cold for sprinklers and it has to be sprinklered.
It has to be a dry
And
system, right?
why would we have,
There's a dry system.
there is not a dry system in there. The only place the dry system exists is in the server room. Because that's where it needs to be. You don't want wet stuff getting all over your electronic equipment.
No,
That's-
that's what they're talking about. A dry system is, you're talking about like an
That's a
old
chemical.
halon system goes into server rooms.
Yeah.
What they're talking about a dry system is the water's held back. Right? The water's held back. And
Yeah.
when it senses the fire,
Those air
all the
pressure.
water's released. So it stops your pipes up in the ceilings from getting, freezing in the winter, and stuff like
Right.
that. So it very well could be a dry system. And look, I don't want to be here and sound like I'm beating up on the building and site committee. I guess just what gets me crazy is it's like, we're confident it's going to come in at 1.2, or we're confident it's going to come into 1.25. Promise you there's going to be money left over at the end of the project. Even if I had a 5,182, I mean, that's still a substantial amount of change orders. That's $195,000 in that project. And my question is, STV, they were looking at plans, Downs was looking at plans. I mean, it really seems like, did we really get our money's worth out of the people that were supposed to be representing us and working for us? I mean, that's a pretty big, that's a big number.
So we have $101,000 in change orders now, according to this report, if it's correct. And again, I had asked Evan, why do
Hold
the
on.
numbers not jive? And he said he thinks there was a kind of broken formula, and he said he upgraded it and I still.
So you're saying we might be at 1.3, not 1.3.
So there's $101,000 in change orders, which doesn't mean you subtract that from the.
Well, actually, it
1.4
says the
million.
base contract was just shy of 1.3 million. It was never 1.2 according to this. The base contract was
Right,
1.3.
yet there are some numbers in the base contract column that aren't base contract. They're base contract plus some change orders that were added when we were looking at.
So the change orders could be equal to 190 because some of those change orders are in the base contract that were done before you signed.
Not quite 190, maybe 150. Have to look to get at it. I've been looking at this for like 3 days trying to figure it out. because again, the numbers to me didn't jive and just didn't seem as we were moving along, even with the change orders that, and a couple of larger 10,000,
What is-
20,000.
Does
Change
Brad know
orders.
what we've paid today?
That's where I got the spreadsheet. We've paid, $1,251,925.19. And that's, and I can,
You mean 1,261,000? Or
1,251,925.19.
what's that?
And
Invoice to date, the
That's-
1,261.
1,251,925.19.
Which one are you looking at?
I just got this from Brad, so it is. if-
Oh,
If
okay.
you want Mary to make copies, I can.
So that's what we've actually paid, but some of those, there's retainages, right, Nancy?
Yes, and so we owe, according to the budget report, we still owe, $138,500.98.
Right.
Which gets us to
1,308,930 is where it would get us to. 1,389,930.
right, I think we owe. I think we actually owe maybe another,
So their numbers may be right that we're actually gonna come in at 1,399,817.
well, I'm looking at 1,395,317, yes,
Alright,
and
alright.
somewhere around there, but maybe a little less, maybe a little more.
So Brad, did this include the $10,000 change order?
So
No, we
this,
Yes.
what I
This is-
ran was just what we've paid.
But we
and-
paid,
And what we
Oh, okay.
paid includes the 49,447 to STV for the training range from CNR. So
Right.
what's hit the $1.4 million account right now is 1,202,000.
So we don't owe any more money than the 138,000. We have no more bills coming from Downs. We have no
no,
more.
we do
bills.
have bills coming from Downs, that's what I'm saying, we owe Downs money, we owe. extra
Right, but
project money.
on top of the 138, you're saying we owe money?
No,
That's what I just asked.
The
We
one-
owe
the
no
one-
more, we don't owe anything over.
if that figure's correct, I have
Let's
143.
just
So-
let's just say the figure's correct.
Okay.
We're gonna stay $182 under budget. We're not going to anyone for any money. We're good.
Nancy said
Yes.
first, this guy won't finish because he needs more
Well,
money to finish the
No,
contract.
no,
No,
but we
he's
have
not.
money, we have money left. To date, we've paid 1,251,925.
Correct,
But we have
But
outstanding,
we have outstanding bills to get to
Bills.
1.38
Right.
something.
We have outstanding bills, again, of $138,005. There might be one that we're missing, which brings us to a current total of $1,389,930. So I guess my point is this. STV's money that they're saying is owed is not in this committed amount.
it is in the committed amount, the money that, and I.
We just haven't released it to them yet.
Right, we haven't paid it,
what about the $10,000 change order?
we haven't paid that yet, because I haven't.
Is it in
gotten
this
a bill
amount?
for it yet. Huh? No, it's not in here, because we haven't paid it yet.
So basically we're going over.
No. So.
Because of
right,
the 49,000.
it is, it's 100, I say 143, he has 138.
But it's in the committed column,
Yeah.
because the committed column, even if you take your 5,000 out, we've committed to 1,394,817 we've committed to. Is the 10,000 part of that committed? Because
Yes,
if not, we're
yes.
over.
No,
Oh,
it's-
okay.
That's why, yeah, that's what
Yes.
you've
Yeah,
asked.
so that's my question. Let's just take this worst case scenario of 1.39. Let's just call it whatever, the committed.
Yep.
Is there anything, any other bill floating around that we're gonna owe on this project? Or is that the final worst case scenario? Like if you're right and it's 5,000 under, it's 5,000 under. If you're wrong, is that our worst case scenario? And we're done and we know we don't owe any more money to anyone, or do we have more bills coming?
We do have more bills coming, we have Downs, we know what they are,
That,
That's what I'm
so
saying.
this is
That's
what I'm
that
saying.
amount
That's
that-
called committed.
yes.
What I'm saying,
I'm-
are there
so-
any uncommitted expenses
Not that I know,
coming?
there shouldn't be, because I'm looking at what I spent all this time doing past 3 days, looking at what we approved. I went through all the meeting minutes, what we approved from proposals from different companies, what we approved as change orders, got what we have paid to date from Brad. Those are the numbers I'm using.
But why did STV stop if they know they're getting paid?
They are
That's-
gonna get paid, but they're not gonna get paid anymore for doing any more work.
Right. They're
Their
out. of-
They're at
contract
hours.
is,
They ran out of hours. I'm still gonna pay them what they did.
Right, but do
They
we
don't have
need
to-
them for the completion? I mean,
Well, that's
this is
the
my
that's
question,
the
'cause
discussion.
something tells me that
Yeah.
they're gonna be more than $198 if we need them
Right.
for something.
Right.
I don't see them.
so.
So-
I think
so
the
that-
way- I
That
think the way-
49,000.
So the way you need to look at it, because the way Brad has it on a spreadsheet here, is that 1.2, that 1,251,925.19. Okay, that's paid to date. He has, so with a 1.4 million.
Just so you know, we don't have his
referendum.
spreadsheet. So just so you know, we don't have his spreadsheet.
I know, I understand. You want
Yeah.
copies?
Yes, please, actually.
Right.
This is for me.
So the total amount available, he's got it right there. You want to look at it? But the total,
Oh, sorry.
Are you good? Thanks, Brad. I can read that.
This doesn't even help.
You have a pair of
Zoom
binoculars?
in there.
I
So
got a pair of
just
binoculars
while
right
Mary's
here.
making copies, what Brad has on the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
At the very
Good job,
end,
Brad.
he's got the one.
So here's, let me show the bottom line, Nancy.
Show the bottom line and enlarge it. Big, big, big. Yeah, keep going.
There
There it
you
is.
go.
That's what I want you to look at. So
All right,
there's
so
1,000,000.
CNR hold on, Nancy, can I run through it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So CNR was approved for 49,447 for the project manager. This number right here is the STV, what we've paid them so far, 77,586. So of that 49,000, we've spent more than that on STV already. So that 49,447 is done. But included in that, in this 1.251 number that Nancy keeps talking about, includes the 49,000 paid to STV. So in theory, if you have $140,000 left, right? That is the committed number that I don't know what I just did. That Brian keeps talking about.
Make it 145.
1.445.
No, not, so
49.
145,000.
Brad's the math major. Let him do his thing. Brad.
So let's call it 150,000, 145,000. If those are all the rest of the bills for this that we don't have yet in finance to pay, we'd be at 1,396,000. The total project, because of the CNR allotment, is really approved for 1,449,447.
That's
So if we have $145,000 more of bills, the project would come way over the 1.2. So I don't want to say under budget,
Be careful.
coming under the total allotted money. So hopefully the 145 is the worst case scenario, and these bills are really 130. But right now it doesn't look like there's any additional money needed to do it.
So you basically have like a $30,000 or $40,000 buffer if something happens.
Yep.
Correct, Brad?
Yes, and I don't want to call it a buffer because we're way past the point of buffer. I think that is,
Yeah.
I
A
think,
word?
honestly, Nancy, I think if you guys spend more than the 145,000 left, I think you guys should come back to the Board of Selectmen and tell them before you do it. Because you are that close to maxing out this thing.
Right, and I don't see a need to do that. I mean,
So,
STV
At this point,
yes, I said STV could come back and say, well, we'll help you with this for this much money. I don't know if I do that.
Well, I mean,
If we need them.
if STV is not willing to do any more work,
Not that they're not willing.
they want, Nancy, let's not play semantics, okay? I'm just being honest. If they're not willing to do any more work without getting paid,
That's,
that they've used all their hours,
yes, they have.
and if we need them, we're gonna be over the referendum amount.
No,
Nancy, come on. If even if you're right at 4K, do you really think they're gonna do all this work for under 4K? You're including, the referendum was 1.4 million.
yes.
That's what the voters thought they were spending on this project.
Mhm.
That's what I thought we were spending on this project.
Mhm.
Okay, you had 44 something thousand dollars that was approved previously for project management. Really, if we had known that when we went to referendum, we would have said 1.4 less any monies already collected is what the motion probably would have been. So all I'm saying is if you're gonna come over 1.4 million, I mean, the Board of Selectmen should know and should approve any actions before they're taken if we're gonna come over that 1.4 million. That's all.
Okay, so right now, we're not going over. And we're looking at between, you know, like that STV amount that was out of the capital non-recurring. So 50,000 plus or minus. It's there. I don't want to spend it. We don't have anything we need to spend it on or want to spend it on, and we're not anticipating needing to
So
spend.
you don't need STV for anything else?
I would like to have them work.
Okay, so let's get, okay. If we're gonna need STV, let's find out exactly what we need them for. Let us know. If we need to come back and do this right, we'll take a little bit of that capital non-recurring. Board of Selectmen will have to approve it. But we can do that. Right? Because what we don't want to do is go over the amount, you know, in any other way. I'm hearing we have a little bit of money left. About 30 grand.
That's if we use the capital non-recurring.
Right.
Yes.
If we have to.
Yes.
If.
Yes.
But right now, I'm still seeing this $182 left.
Right.
That's not with the 49 CR.
That's not with the 49. But-
Part of the 49.
But if we're gonna pay them more than $182, then we have to pull it out of the capital non-recurring.
Right.
Okay, so that,
But again, like I
Yeah.
said, I've got to go over this. I don't
understood.
know how this spreadsheet works because again, I'm looking at numbers that don't.
Yeah.
Make sense to me. And I know what the amount that we approved for action target is and they've got a different number in there. Why? Where did that come from?
Understood.
That needs to.
And I know how hard this is, Nancy. I'm not, I just want to make sure I feel like we're just not hitting the same.
No, I understand. I
Yeah.
do understand.
Yeah.
And it was an unfortunate kind of way that things happened with STV.
Yeah.
Evan went away on vacation, a vacation aid plan for a long time. We had a meeting. He was gonna call in and then he was told not to. I think.
Yeah.
Can I ask Brett a clarification?
Sure.
Brad,
Sir,
of the 49,000 that came from CNR, is that technically spent or is that still in limbo?
it's spent. It's because that was spent in 22 and 23 fiscal
All right,
years.
okay.
So the 49,447 is spent. Ideally, the project of the 1.4 million returns at least 49 or the 49,000. So I think the goal, to Brian's point, is the 49 being spent, and of the 1.4 approved at referendum, to only spend 1.35 to keep the whole project at $1.4 million.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for Brian, but the head nod tells me I think he agrees.
Yeah, yes. That's what I'm understanding.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Thank you, Brad.
But
You're
we've already got
speaking for
committed,
how
we've already got
we're
committed 1.399817.
Right, but part of that was from CNR.
But you're saying that 49 was in there.
Mhm.
So we can subtract the 49 from that and
Right,
that's
so
where
if
we
you
have
look
the
at
vote.
the spreadsheet, just
Okay.
the 1,251,925.19 that he's got is total of the 2 pages.
Yeah.
That includes the 49,447.
Right,
So
but
if
Dan,
we-
you can't go over 1.35.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. If you go over 1.35, you've exceeded the 1.4 million threshold for the whole project.
Mhm.
Right. That's all. And if we're gonna exceed the threshold, all I'm saying is we should come back to the Board of Selectmen, just so we know exactly what's going on. Because if someone asks us, we approved 1.4, we're able to explain it in a clear and precise way. And that gives Melanie time to know that we're on good reference with what we're doing. And it might make
Yeah.
sense to call the order and how it was approved at referendum, no, Melanie? To make sure that it wasn't less any monies received or anything like that, just to reread the referendum to see how it was worded when we voted on it.
So it said not to exceed the 1.4 million.
But it didn't say less anything or.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Let's
Okay.
see what the language.
Yeah, I would just look at it to make sure we're on good ground.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's fine.
It's not a big deal to check
Yeah.
it, right?
No.
2 seconds.
I don't know. I mean, not 2 seconds.
So, maybe 2 minutes. Melanie's fast. I've seen her
Actually, Melanie, I'll
work.
do it.
She's
Melanie.
fast.
I'll send it to you.
Did the 10,000 change order get carried in the sheet?
Yeah,
That's
that's
fine.
fine.
That's
That's what I'm doing.
in,
It's in his number.
it's in the
right?
change order
He
numbers.
carried it.
So it's in the remaining balance, is the way I am, and those I checked and they seem to be correct. There's some others, it's the action target one that kind of has me flummoxed, because
As you started the meeting, which this guy needs to get with Target and the commissioning agent. That's why he needs more hours.
So,
You specifically said he needed hours because you needed something out of it.
not, well, this big thing I needed from him was all the different things that have been sent to him that now he comes to, so I can handle them.
Move on to the next.
So
Yeah,
he doesn't need
let's,
to
um,
be
let's do
there, for,
By the way,
Things
we're
like-
gonna go ahead and wrap it up.
We're gonna, we've
So-
got charter
so what
commission,
I
other
am
things to
gonna-
get to.
I am gonna check in with Evan to see, like, if there are
Okay.
things that that we, the town, needs him to do. We need to know what that will entail, and there, does he need to be at the inspections? Does he need to be,
Alright.
doing
Okay.
things like, I got an email from Laura today asking for. a
We'll make
warrant.
sure he puts together a budget for it.
Well, yeah, that's what we got for the last change order that they gave us, which was like $3,000 to get us through the end of the project, and he's. So.
Okay, so, under
Thank you.
unfinished business, continuation of the
Thank you.
discussion of charter revision. Melanie, we're going to appoint the charter commission tonight as well. Should I do that under adding a separate item to that, or can we do them, all the motions under that consideration? We should be able to do it under discussion of charter revision, but yeah, we're on unfinished business.
Continuation discussion. Charter
Yeah.
revision.
So we're going to be doing two motions eventually, and that is, basically recommend a proposed modification draft of what we would recommend and give to the charter commission, and also appoint the charter commission. So I don't think we have to add individual, but we could. I mean, we can go through that if you think it's,
You just do, we have continuation discussion. of
we're
charter
just, because we
revision.
can make our motions as we need to.
I would just add as you need to, if you need to. So you're going to continue the discussion.
You
We're
want
gonna-
to
we're
add,
gonna
you
continue
want us
this.
to add to the agenda? We're gonna appoint people tonight. Do we need to add that to the agenda?
You should appoint it if you're going to approve to go to.
Okay, so,
to the
okay, so
charter
let's do
meeting.
this.
Let's just add. to the-
Yeah,
I just would, I would. be
okay,
more specific than what's on here.
I move that we add to the agenda, under continuation of discussion of charter revision, appointment of the charter revision commission.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's added to the agenda. And with that, with our appointment is where we make our charge. I don't think we have to, well, maybe we should vote on this too. Mary, also add after the appointment, consideration of recommendation of the, modifications to the charter revision for 2024 to be presented to the charter revision commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. So with that, first off, I have with me the original letters of who was recommended from the Bethel Republican Town Committee. The recommendations were Joan Bradley, Tim Biebel, John Lennon, Patrick Dahlberg. And from the Democrat Town Committee, Karen Foster, Alice Hutchinson, Penny Kessler, Matt Knickerbocker. Considering that there are 7 openings, I move that we appoint Joan Bradley, Tim Biebel, John Lennon, Pat Dahlberg, Karen Foster, Alice Hutchinson, and Penny Kessler.
Second.
So for discussion, that's what we have. I have had a lot of conversations with Matt about the charter revision. And, given the fact that he knows a ton about charters, he's done a number of them. I really recommended that he be in touch with the charter commission directly, as opposed to being a member, considering he's the past first select committee. So I think we have a very good lineup that's approved by both parties. Any further discussion on the appointments? Yes.
Would you have a copy for me?
I will provide you these as soon as we go. So seeing none, no other comments, I'll try your minds. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. So next up, I'll make the motion first and we can discuss. I move that we recommend to the Charter Revision Commission the proposed modifications to the charter I've listed out for both of you. We've discussed for the 2024 charter revision. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so the draft is exactly what I passed out over time, with the exception of that we kind of nailed down on the fire commission, what we should do. Originally, we were talking about being an elected body. We're not gonna make it an elected body, but we'll add it to the charter and I'll go ahead and I'll read it here if I can find where it is. Give me 1 second, 'cause I didn't know. Works controller, added power commission. Section 7-6, right now that is a reserved spot in the charter. I would recommend that they update the charter to add the fire commission. The Board of Selectmen should appoint, in accordance with the provisions of the charter, a fire commission consisting of 5 regular members who have never served as a firefighter and 2 ex officio members who shall be current firefighters employed outside of Bethel or former firefighters, each, that way they're Bethel residents either way, right? Each of whom shall serve a term of 4 years, and said terms shall overlap. Commission shall have the powers and the duties that are now or may hereafter be conferred or imposed by said commission by the Connecticut General Statute, Special Acts, and Local Ordinances. So really what that does now, instead of it just being all firemen on one, it gives taxpayer oversight. We are mandating that at least 2 people who are ex officio shall be on it and shall be current or former firefighters who are residents of Bethel. That, they're still gonna have the chiefs come, they can still, but I think that's really the recommendation going forward. That's the only thing that we've changed on this document from the last time that we've all seen. So, any discussion on the proposed?
If you could just go through it one more time.
Sure.
And we have 2 firemen from the departments.
Yep. Or anybody that we want to appoint. It could be like a Danbury fireman, for instance, right? Who's a Bethel resident,
Right.
right? Or it could be, it's actually not anybody who's currently on our department though. They're former firefighters from our department or current firefighters in another town who are Bethel residents. So this way we don't have current firefighters from each department now.
Right.
competing.
No, there shouldn't be.
Right, but we have people with fire experience, right?
Yeah, the only
Sure.
2 people right now are really the fire chiefs but they're non-voting.
Right, and the fire chiefs are allowed to come speak to the commission at any point because the commission really has oversight of the fire department. So the chiefs all should be there, or whoever the chief wants to come. The commission should be involved in speaking with them. Because that's the point. And I think the vision, as we craft the ordinance around it too, is that the fire commission should have a little more input on policy and standards and standard operating procedures before. That's the way in the state or any of our commissions work that way, right? The commission usually oversees a department in some way. And that's like the police commission oversees the police department policies. That still should be something we work more to make the fire commission really work. If that makes sense. I know there's a lot of controversy about not having just all the firemen on, but I think we've learned that taxpayer oversight and participation is really, really important.
Well, and we had talked about one time just having a regular individual, not anybody related to the fire department's knowledge or someone from the general public. Is that under consideration of who
Can you
the
explain
board
that
of
again?
selectmen appoint?
Well, the board of selectmen would appoint 2 members who have fire experience, who are Bethel residents. So they either have to be a current or former firefighter from outside town, but live in Bethel, or a former firefighter from inside town. Like somebody who has fire experience. I just don't think it's particularly appropriate to have an active firefighter from one of our departments on the board. But at the same time, you could have an active firefighter from Danbury or Norwalk or wherever it's a Bethel resident.
Well, in our discussion before, we talked about just having someone from the public, a general.
Well, the first 5 members will just be public members who have not served as firefighters. Is that what you're?
He's only talking about the 2 have to have
I'm just talking about
fire
the-
experience.
Yeah, I'm saying it's mandatory.
5
to
of them are
have-
regular citizens.
Yeah.
5 are regular citizens?
Yep.
Yeah, 5 are just regular citizens. They don't have to be fire people or anything, just regular citizens.
Now, listen, there's no reason we can consider making all 7 of them full voting members. As long as they're not active firemen in our departments.
I mean, the police commission is all non-police officer.
Right.
Non-former police officers, right? And, you know, it makes sense not to have,
Well,
you know, police officers on the police commission.
well, the recommendation, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, the recommendation from the fire commission was to have individual knowledge of the fire departments.
But they're firemen who work on the fire department, so of course they're gonna say that. I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
You know, they're not gonna say, I mean, because each one wants to lobby for their own department and.
That is a problem. They're asking for the status quo. It's problematic just having all firemen on the board. I understand it's nice to have people with a vote or influence on the board who have to be recognized. Remember, as an ex officio member, you have to be recognized as a board member. Ex officio don't vote unless we want to make it a voting member, which I don't think I'd be opposed to. But you can't have the whole board be firemen or have all fire experience, because we need a few to be able to understand what apparatus is and what it does. But we need a taxpayer.
Exactly.
But we're trying to do that with having 2 people on it who, and the chiefs are here.
Well, I mean, this is
Yeah.
just a recommendation to the charter revision.
Yep.
They can do what they want with it.
That's true.
But I guess I would question, Richie, you wouldn't be in favor of having police officers on the police commission, correct?
If they were retired or something like that.
If they were retired, but if they were active?
No, not active.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing, you know, with the fire departments, because.
Well,
Yeah,
you have Doug Curry, he's a fireman in Richfield.
he would count as an ex officio
Yeah,
member.
Right.
He would count.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a perfect,
Right.
yeah.
So,
But Doug Curry is not a Bethel fireman.
no, oh, I see, you're saying Bethel fire.
So what I'm having a problem with is that we have all Bethel firemen, and it's become this game of having the same amount of Stony Hill and the same amount of Bethel, and they all get together, and it's about that instead of having oversight of what we're doing. It's all firemen. And at some point, there's no taxpayer oversight in that process. And I understand it's,
I personally
Yeah.
think they should be firemen, so not necessarily Buffalo firemen, but they should have some fireman experience because of what we're talking about.
Yeah, but isn't that the chief's, kind of like the police commission, that's the
Yeah.
chief's responsibility to educate the fire commission and give them their, you know, that's what Chief Pugner and other chiefs do across the state. They
Yeah.
explain to the citizens, this is what we want, this is why we need it. And, you know, it's not like the fire commission is writing fire policy. They're not going to be saying, you know, do this, do that. I
well,
mean,
they can actually influence policy and recommend
They
policy,
have to approve it.
but
Right.
in working with the chiefs as the
Right,
experts.
but they're not gonna tell them how to
Yeah.
put out fires.
No.
That's not what they're there for.
No,
No,
That's what you have.
but
to do with fire.
the real problem though, too, is like, number one, it's gonna be hard to get all firemen, even from other places. We don't have that many surface firemen, but even then, I think we've learned that all the firemen tend to have groupthink. If you've got a whole bunch of professional firemen together, they're all thinking the same thing. Let's get the best piece of equipment, or let's do this or that. It does become just all about firemen, and there's no oversight. I think we learned that in that study recently. So I want firemen to be there and have input, but there still has to be some sort of taxpayer, regular citizen involved. Because right now, the fire commission as it does not work properly. And it's all firemen. I don't believe in it. We have good people. And certainly what
well,
keeps
they
them.
do have the best interest of the town.
Of course they do. At the same time, though, there's nobody from outside that group giving any input. Like the public is virtually excluded from that group, right?
There's public comment every meeting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I understand, Rich. I understand. how
I mean, you
feel.
could put in that the ex officios have voting privileges. I mean, it's gonna be a 7-person vote on it. I don't have an
You
issue
can
with
do
that,
that.
Well, if,
as long as they can't serve as chair.
It's good.
I have no problem with giving them a vote as long
Yeah.
as they can't serve as chair of the
Can I say
commission.
one thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just, what this police commission and fire commission are supposed to do They're supposed to look at the whole town, and they're just like a jury. They're just like the Trump jury. They're getting picked to just overlook and have a good opinion of what they think. They're taking the input from the chiefs, from the other paid guys, and they're saying, okay, that makes sense. So if it's right and the chief sold it to them, they'll get what they need. But it's just an oversight committee. It shouldn't be stacked any differently than that.
Again, I don't have an issue with the two ex officios being allowed to
Yeah, I
vote,
agree with Brian, and give the ex officio members the.
as long as we specifically say they can't be a chair. Nick, it's 2 out of 5. You still have your oversight. As long as they can't be chair, they can't break a tiebreaker. That has to be a citizen.
So when we write the language, here's where I'll go with it.
The charter can do whatever they want with it. I mean, if we're just recommending it, they can do
Just a
whatever they want.
recommendation.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're just making a recommendation.
Charter commission can do whatever
We're
they
totally
want.
putting it in their hands.
Yeah.
You know, which, yeah, totally put it in their hands. And it should be definitely should be in the charter. So recommendation will be updated the charter to add the fire commission. The board of selectmen should appoint, in accordance with provisions of the charter, a fire commission consisting of 5 regular members who have never served as a firefighter and 2 members who shall be current firefighters employed outside of Bethel or former firefighters who are not eligible to be, none of which are eligible to be chair of the commission. And they can do whatever they want with. It really doesn't matter how I put it.
That's fine. So that was a good compromise, right, Rich?
Um,
Perfect.
I have to make sure, I'll have to make sure Bethel residents is clear. I mean, I think it's taken care of in other parts of the charter, but under appointments, I'll just make sure. We're doing it right. Okay. So there's a motion on the table, and I just amended the motion. You know, I would have added with C76. Any further discussion? No. Okay. With that, I'll try our minds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So out of the way.
Charter is done.
Yep.
Off to the-
Now, by the way, we could still, if we have things that come up that we want to recommend,
Yeah,
we can still do so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still, that's still open. All right, so I move that we, that we table the consideration of modifications of deferral assessment increase ordinance, the consideration of modification of solid waste ordinance, and consideration of repeal of the dumpster ordinance.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. All right, new business. First up, Brad, you've been so patiently waiting. So we're going to talk about the town insurance and a possible bid waiver. Brad, do you want to go through the Kerma plan?
Sure. We're currently in, well, let me back up. Karma's been our insurance carrier for workers' compensation and LAP, which is liability, auto, and property insurance. Probably 9 years now. Workers' comp, ever since our original agreement, they've gone year to year on. And over the last number of years, they've either reduced it or kept it flat. For the 25 budget year, they kept it flat. And we're currently in the last year of our liability, auto, and property with them for 25. And they had a cap of a maximum increase of 3% plus exposure. So obviously, when we redid the schools, our liability insurance goes up, the property is worth more money. But that's going to happen whether or not we're capped or not. So for the current, well, for 2024, 25, they came in and said, we're going to put you at the 3% cap. That's what we budgeted on. They approached us a week or two ago saying they would like to take the last year of our agreement, 24, 25. They want to add 2 more years to it. And what they're proposing is making 24, 25 flat. So 0% increase in the premium other than exposure increase, and capping the out years. So 25, 26, 26, 27 at a maximum of 5%. So the cap means the most they can do is go up 5% those years. But it could be less if we've had good exposures. It's a pool. So if there's, The pool's having a good year. It could come in lower. They have come in lower a couple years. They've hit the cap a couple years. Some of what happened with Kerma recently, there was a town near us that had a fire to their roof of their high school. It was a huge hit to Kerma. So it was a bad year for them for that because it's the pool piece. The other thing they're doing, irregardless of this, is they're increasing our deductible for the liability auto, not auto, just liability and property from 10,000 to 25,000. They're doing that anyway. That's separate of this. But when they approached us with this, I brought it to Dan. I reached out to our insurance guru on the insurance and pension committee, Paul Improta, asked him what he was seeing out in the market. And he said he wished his clients were seeing a cap of 5, even with the deductible change. The cost of everything has gone through the roof. We've seen that affects insurance. You used to be able to replace a car for 30,000. Now it's 40,000. Like that's a bad example because you get what you get. But you know what I mean? Like just the cost of building has gone through the roof. So if you need to rebuild something that got affected by something, it costs more money now. So that's driving up insurance premiums. So my recommendation to the Board of Selectmen is we take the $20,000 in savings for 24-25, which would just fall out to the fund balance because we wouldn't spend it. And take the cap in the 2 out years at 5%. Keep doing what we're doing to limit our exposure. Hope everybody else does good things. And no, worst case, we have a 5% cap those 2 years. The last couple times they've extended us at a cap of 3. So in essence, we're going from traditionally we get a 3-year deal with 3 3s to a 3-year deal at 10% because it's 2 5s instead of 3 3s at 9. So in essence, I'm looking at it as a 1% increase over the 3 years.
Any thoughts? So we're saying, I mean, Kerma does a lot of other stuff for us too, right?
Yeah, so we take advantage of a lot of their training opportunities. And we've had great success with their workers' comp. This year it's flat. I think the prior 2 years it was down. Not huge percentages, but I think 1 year was 1.5%, and the other year might have been 1%. And the whole reason, just to go back further, the reason we ended up with Kerma is we used to be with Travelers, and they looked to go up in our workers' comp 30% in 1 year. And then we went out to bid on it, and Kerma came in pretty much what we were paying Travelers without the increase. And we've been with Kerma ever since, and we've had good experience with them. So
The what do you get as the annual premium?
I will pull that up. Give me 1 second to pull that up from the budget. Insurance is 210. So the budgeted number for workers' comp for 24-25 is just under $750,000. The liability, auto, and property is budgeted at $600,000, which is a 17%, or not, is a $17,000 increase because it's the 3%. So the spend for 24-25 would go down by 17,000. So in essence, every percentage point right now is worth $6,000. So if we went up in 26, the full 5, we'd be in essence budget wise up like 13,000 because of the $17,000 decrease for 24-25.
So what are you guys think? I mean, the question is, we need to do a good way to keep them.
I mean, I'm not thrilled, you know, 5% year over year isn't
Well,
exactly fun.
I mean,
I know it goes based on your
Yeah.
injuries. If you don't have any injuries,
Yeah.
in theory, if we don't have
if we have less claims than we did the year before, in theory, it should stay flat or go down, right, Brad?
Yeah, so the workers' comp is year to year. So
Yeah.
that could go up or down next year.
Depending on.
Yeah, the cap is only on the liability, auto, and property.
Oh, so it's 5%. Oh,
Yeah, this is only
Well,
automobile.
I mean,
Liability.
I kind of agree with our insurance guy. I mean, our premiums have been going through the roof, so I think it seems fairly reasonable.
Millie, to effectively do a bid waiver in this, as far as the we know what other companies are doing in general right now, and this is coming up soon. So I'm certainly would like to do it instead of going through a full bid process because of the timing. Do we need anything else to justify besides that?
I guess the things that Brad has recited, that he's looked at the marketplace.
Yeah.
Our history with Irma, and is there some deadline to accept this, Brad? How long is this offer open?
They didn't give us like an exact date, but they're not going to let it sit out there forever. The other piece of this is one of the benefits of being with Kerma. After you've been with them, I believe 3 years, you're eligible for returns of premium. This past year, we didn't get anything because of the large claim they had, but previous years have been upwards of $60,000-$70,000. I'm just trying to pull that up. If you give me 2 seconds, I could tell you the history of that.
That's a good enough reason for me.
I think-
I think I don't think you gotta look
Okay.
it up, Brad.
So,
I think you've made a good point.
Okay, so with that, I make a motion that we waive the bid for the upcoming insurance for liability, property, and automobile,
And workers' comp.
and actual workers' comp, not persons.
Who is that?
This is just liability, automobile, and property.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we'll waive the bid requirement. And I guess now I make a motion to allow the first selectman, Dan Carter, to enter into the contract and sign the contract for Kerma and the upcoming insurance effective July 1st, 24 through 25, and July 1st through 26 and 27. That's it.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Sign that, get that done. Great. Next up, I'll read a resolution. So the Homeland Security Grant Program is something we get every year. So we're required to do a resolution each year. So this is for the fiscal year 2023 State Homeland Security Grant Program. Resolved that the Board of Selectmen may enter into and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, any and all documents which deems it to be necessary, appropriate, and further resolved that Daniel Carter, as first selectman of the town of Bethel, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the Board of Selectmen and to do and perform all acts and things which he deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents, including but not limited to executing and delivering all agreements and documents contemplated by such documents. So I make a motion that we approve the resolution.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. And no opposed. Moving, cooking with gas here. I move that we appropriate $75,000 from ARPA funds for the paramedic program. So a second. So for discussion, we have talked about this, that we did the budget, that the paramedic program, obviously it's running a little short when we were doing our budget. We decided to take a little out of ARPA for that. Brad, do you want add anything to that?
No, well, pretty much all we did is we knew we needed to go up in the budget from $300,000, the allocation to $450,000. When Dan and I were talking about it, we said this is the last year we have any money of ARPA that we could approve because it's got to be done by December 31st, the allocation. So we said to give the taxpayers a little break using ARPA funds, we would ease into it. We go from 300 to 375 to potentially 450 the following year. Would also say if there's any money left in December of ARPA that we haven't allocated, this is a good place to put it. But 75 is kind of what we talked about during the budget process.
Yeah, kept it being a bigger goal. So we have a second, any discussion? Moving forward. Okay, with that, I'll try your minds. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, I move to approve $30,000, not to exceed $30,000 from ARPA funds for the repairs to the Stony Hill Fire Department's day room and community rooms. Have a second?
Second.
Okay. So what we have before us is, as you gentlemen know, the building is pretty old now. What, 20 years old?
25.
25. The day room cabinets are really, really bad. I mean, they're basically falling apart, some of them off the edges. And also the same with the same kind of cabinets in the community room. We did not add the radio room to this. I mean, nobody really sees the radio room. If there's any leeway in what they're actually doing, the quote, I'll have them do it. But we have a quote from DeMarco Construction, and it's actually under $30,000.
$26,450.
Perfect. And basically you're going to, you remove the cabinets, dispose of them, do the new kitchen cabinets, new island cabinets, towards countertops, kitchen sink and faucet, electric work, etc. And they'll do the new countertop section in the, or countertop section in the community room.
So why are we going to 30,000?
I just in case, like, they need, I think it'll be less, but I picked a number just above it. We could do 27. But, and by the way, we're gonna waive the permits. Now, I don't know if he actually put money in.
That's like
For that.
150.
I know, I'm just saying, every little dime counts. I picked just that next round up to make sure there were no issues. If you feel more comfortable doing 27 or 28,
I would do let's do 27.5.
27.5.
He
Okay.
came in with a solid estimate. It's a solid estimate.
Yeah, it is actually.
So 27.5, not to exceed.
Okay. So, I'll take that as a friendly amendment, that the
Very
movement, that'll be, 27,500. It's worth noting, by the way, this is your 75th anniversary as well. So
Happy
it's our
anniversary.
75th
Oh, yeah.
anniversary. Yeah. So hopefully this will be done by, their celebration in the fall.
Did you make that as a motion?
I did make that, I amended the
I
motion
have
for 27.5. Quick.
I am.
Yes.
I don't think the town should be using ARPA funds for repairs of our buildings. I think it should be either a CNR or a capital fund balance or whatever. I don't believe it was the intent of the ARPA funds to be used for repairs of our buildings. We just approved, and I voted against it, repairing dumpster partitions and rug replacements. I don't feel that the ARPA funds was meant for this. So I will be voting against the motion.
How do you feel? Good.
Let's move the question.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
And show one nay, Mary. Okay. I move that we approve the tax refunds in the amount of 13,000.
Oh,
200.
you missed the animal control.
Oh, I did. I put my check mark in the wrong spot.
I take care of the doggies.
You sure do. Wow. Brad, one question. So we're talking about the animal control officer's vehicle. When we talked about this, did we actually talk about doing this through ARPA or passing it on to CNR? Is there any discussion about it?
We had talked about doing it through ARPA.
Okay.
Just because of the time frame of having to allocate all of ARPA by the end of December 31st.
Okay. All right. We can always come back to the Board of Finance for CNR budget later. I move that we approve an amount not to exceed $70,000 from ARPA funds to replace the animal control officer's vehicle. Second. Okay, for discussion.
Again, I don't believe money should be used for expenditure for something that I feel the town should be paying for it out of the either capital non-recurring or budget item or out of the fund balance.
Does that include fire vehicles?
Pardon?
Does that include fire vehicles?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Fair enough. Any other further discussion?
Nope.
Okay. Motion on the table. I'll try your minds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Show one opposed, Mary? Okay. I move that we approve the tax refunds in the amount of $13,246.83 due to the overpayment of taxes.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll try minds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So, I move that we go into executive session to discuss the purchase of 159 Greenwood Avenue. I'd like to invite in Mary Churchill, our secretary, Melanie O'Brien, our town attorney, and we have our board of finance chair here. I'd like to invite in for the executive session as well. So, Brad, also the comptroller, you're invited as well. I think it's, we got everything full house.
Anybody else? The cleaners.
Anybody else?
Brad, are you sitting on your front porch?
It's backwards.
Back.
Back porch, so you don't have to hear the kids screaming while they go to bed.
I actually enjoy that.
The kids
Are
screaming.
we off camera now, Mary? Are we in executive session?
I'll stop recording, but
Please.
Brad,
Yeah, you can stop recording.
You could just segregate Brad on that.
There's nobody else in it right now. is there?
I'm taking off. Good night, guys. And ladies.
I make a motion.
Okay, we've returned from the executive session. It's now 9:28 PM. Okay, motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Night,
Stand adjourned. 9:28. Yes, thanks.
Brian, you got the name tag, sir?
I've got one way before you ever did, that's for
Nick,
sure.
thanks for being here, man.